Hey, slotcar land! Here we go with the first video in the new series of identifying what chassis you have. Today we're starting with Aurora and AFX, and I've got 18 different, 18 chassis with variations of each to show you guys, so you can help you guys identify what your chassis is. And I don't even have all of them, and there's 18 here. So what I don't have is, I do not have a couple of the T-Jet variations. I do not have the dune buggy or the truck, and I do not have a Wild Ones or a Tough Ones chassis. So those are the only ones out of these that I do not have. So let's we're going to bring the camera down, hopefully give you guys a close look, and we'll just go from there. Okay, hopefully you guys can see. We're going to start with the oldest chassis first. Now, I do not have a complete one of these. This is the closest thing I have to a vibrator chassis. This is what a vibrator chassis looks like. This one is not complete. It has the same style tires as a T-Jet, same rims as a T-Jet. As a matter of fact, I believe they just carried these over to the T-Jet chassis. This is what the inside looks like. And then this is the bottom. This comes off. This is your plate that holds your pickup shoes and your electronics. It's a separate piece from the chassis. And then this is, basically this is your top plate. It's screwed into the top of the chassis. The item on the inside vibrated this up and down, which pushed on this large rear gear on the rear axle to make it move. So that's how it worked. There are some people that can totally make these things fly around a racetrack, but they're really hard to work on. Stan has been working on one, trying to get them to work. He was going to try and do them as a driver's challenge race at his house, but he just can't get them to run worth a squat. So it takes a very hard technique to get these working. But this is Aurora's very first chassis, the vibrator chassis. So next up is one that everybody pretty much knows. This is your standard T-Jet. Standard stock T-Jet. Very, very cool. Your thin tires. There's a dune buggy, and basically they're the same chassis. They just have different wheels and tires. And there's a truck chassis which has bigger wheels and tires on it as well. So, but that's your stock T-Jet. There's your top. There's your bottom. So that's what a T-Jet looks like if you're new to the hobby. This is what they call a slimline chassis. This is basically what your F1 cars came under. It's got a smaller armature, smaller motor magnets, bigger tires and wheels than your stock T-Jet, but a lot narrower so that it'll fit that body over it. These will fly around the racetrack, but you got to be careful with them. They do have a tendency to burn up armatures. So you got to be kind of careful with it. But that's your slim T-Jet. So that basically covers the T-Jets I have. And like I said, there's those two others. And then you've got your Wild Ones and your Tough Ones, which have wider rear wheels and tires. They kind of look like the older, they look a lot like the older Johnny Lightning cars. They'll have a wider rear wheel on them and a smaller front wheel. Narrower than this, almost like the same as the stock T-Jet. And each of those have a different armature in them. One's a more hopped up armature than the other. And I believe the motor magnets are also slightly different. So now comes the venerable non-mag or AFX chassis. Came out in late 60s, early 70s. It only came out in a wide full body version. And if you have one that actually has the date on the bottom of it, that is in a very early non-mag or AFX chassis. And then there's some like this one, which is closer because it's actually got the where that would be on there covered up. And then even later ones, get my other two out here. Even the later ones, as you can see, this one here does not even have. It gets smaller and smaller as production went along on the AFX cars. So, but if you have one with a date on the bottom of it, that's a very early AFX or non-mag chassis. Of course, then we have the venerable Super 2. Basically, a hopped-up version of the AFX chassis with a few minor changes. The motor brushes are different. Different magnets, different armature. Top plate is pretty much the same. Chassis is pretty much the same, other than the way your motor magnets are in it, or your motor brushes are in it. It also came with the pin. There's also a weight that goes on the front of this chassis, which I don't have on it currently because I'm trying to get the guide pin in there. It'll have aluminum wheels and tires, and then if you have a full one, it has the Lexan body on it. So that is your Super 2. There's the bottom. Next up, we have... Now, I'm not sure if this probably came out towards the end of your Magna traction line. This is a specialty chassis, non-mag chassis, or specialty chassis AFX chassis. As you can see, it's... So pretty much the same. It's got the same diameter armatures in it, same motor magnets in it as the regular car. I'm not sure if this one came with taller rear tires and narrow rear tires, which you're going to see in the Magna Traction Specialty chassis. I'm not quite sure on that. These are also known as 4-gear chassis because of the 4 gears across the top, which is what everybody refers to them today. Because of Auto World stuff, but this is the original specialty chassis. Then we move along to our venerable Magna traction car. Everybody knows these. These are very, very fun, very fast cars. We race them in our Point series. Very nice. Love the Magna traction car. A lot of great bodies for these. There is 2 different wheels. You have these are the older ones. There's some newer ones that have these wider and flatter front tires. Those are the newer chassis. Most of the old chassis had these narrow tires. Then we have the specialty chassis Magna traction. And you will find 2 different tire sizes in this car, a thinner and a taller. This one happens to be out of my Peace tank. I believe the Rolls-Royce also runs this size tire. I think there's maybe one other car too. The 32 Ford Vicky, I think, also runs this tall rear tire. This was my van. This is out from under my van. It runs a narrow one. Elijah's, as you can see, this is his. From his non-mag, it's also got a narrower one. So, but there is your specialty chassis Magna tractions, or 4 gears, however you want to call it. Now I've got 2 specialty Magna traction chassis. If you have one that has this on it, looks just like the regular one. This is a Magnasonic Magna traction with the sound box on top of it. Now the only difference between this and a stock chassis, to my knowledge, is the idler gear in the box. The plastic idler gear has grooves in it that triggers the pin up here on top that vibrates inside the sound box and supposedly supposed to make it sound like a car. But still, very cool to have one of these in the collection to show and to show you guys as well. But to my knowledge, that's the only difference between a Magnasonic to the regular Magna traction car. And then the other one that you have out there is this one right here that has the lights on top that came with the cop cars. This is set up to where it makes these lights alternate back and forth via the chassis. Now this has the same chassis as a lighted Magna traction would, with these turned up tabs on the side. It would actually go to the light in the front, but it runs a light here that comes up and around, and as you can see, it's also soldered to the specialty motor clip on top that holds this gear on top that I believe is ran via the idler gear. I still haven't got the urge to take this apart. I don't want to mess it up. It does run. But that is the lighted, or the siren Magna traction chassis. I'm not sure if they have a name for this one or not. But that is that one. Now, let's move along to the next iteration from AFX, and that is the venerable G Plus chassis. This is the one out from under the one that we did that I got brand new out of the package, strapped in it. It's got foam rear tires. It's got the real rear tires on it. This is a wide pan chassis, as you can see. All G Plus cars came with foam rear tires. There's your bottom. Now there's two chassis types in both. I believe in both the narrow and the wide. This is the older one. This is the newer one. They actually can pop in and out without having to take your wheels off. This is a narrow chassis G Plus. This also came this way as well, but this is the newer one. So this is what it looked like towards the end of production. This is what it looked like in the beginning of production. Then there is your Super G Plus that has the orange magnets with the orange pinion gear and the orange drive gear. I do believe this only came in a narrow. It was never offered in a wide chassis, to my knowledge. I have never seen a wide chassis Super G Plus. So that's that one. Then we come to the Super Magna traction. This car was made to, like I said in the video, to be an easier car to produce than the G Plus, cheaper car to produce than the G Plus. Has different shoes. It's probably the same motor magnets, just different chassis design. To my knowledge, all the Super Magna tractions have a detachable rear axle. Not quite sure what was I going to say? Now I lost my train of thought there for a second. But these were also produced after, when Tomei bought it. Tomei produced AFX Magna traction cars, like this one here. They produced G Plus cars, which was changed to the... they changed the names of them, and there's all to the S chassis, and then there's the SP5000 chassis, which is basically a Super Magna traction car. So there's that. Now there's two other variations that are made off of the Super Magna traction chassis. There is this one here, which this is a speed shift chassis. A gimmick that they came up with towards the end of Aurora, with two different gears in it for two different speeds. And there was a special controller that you used to shift between the two gears. Now, I just noticed this as I was looking at this. There's a wide and a narrow chassis in these. So there's a full body and a F1 chassis in the speed shift line. So it was either offered with a full body or the Indy cars or the F1 cars. These also had foam rear tires. and look very much like the Super Magna traction, except for the square back end rather than this back end. And then there is a third variation. That is the Blazing Brakes chassis, which has a brake light and had specially made chassis, or specially made bodies, where it had rear tail lights in it, that when you use the special controller that came with the set, when you let off, it would actually light this light up. And there's the back of that. You can also see the other gear there. You see the pinion gear, the drive gear, and this third gear here, which helps activate, to my knowledge, helps activate the light. So that is your Blazing Brakes chassis. Now, there is several others that are... Oh, you know what? I did forget one. Hold on for a second. This one. We did a video on this a while back. This is the Speed Steer chassis. Now, this is not a slotless chassis. This is made to run on your regular slot track and has magnets right here where the pickup shoes are to keep this glued to the racetrack, and then also has your magnets here for traction. So this was one of, you know, the gimmicky kind of cars that came up with down the road towards the end of Aurora's existence. So that is all of the AFX Aurora chassis that I have anyways. I'm still trying to acquire a few more that I do not have, but it would be cool to have at least one representation of every one. So I'll give you guys a little pan shot here, starting with your vibrator chassis, your T-Jet, your narrow T-Jet, non-mag, Super 2, specialty chassis non-mag, Magna traction specialty chassis, low profile rear tire, high profile rear tire, your Magnasonic Magna traction, your police car Magna traction chassis, your G Plus narrow, your G Plus wide, your Super G Plus, your Super Magna traction, your speed shift chassis, both wide and narrow, your Blazing Brakes chassis, and your Magna Steer chassis. So I hope that helps you guys out with identifying chassis, at least with the Aurora side of things. Next up, we'll be doing Tyco. The only Tyco I do not have is a Tyco S chassis, which is the very first Tyco chassis, and I do not have the first iteration of a Tyco Pro. I do have the what they call the Tyco Pro 2, which has the buttons, the wiper. If you have a Tyco Pro that has wipers, that is the earlier chassis, but I don't have one of those. So, but we'll take a look at those in the next video and help you guys identify those and see what you have on the Tyco side of things. So have a great day. I hope these videos are going to help you out identifying what chassis you have and what they are. And just keep on watching. Remember, don't forget to visit slotcarcrazy.com for all of to fuel your slot car passions. A lot of great websites there, a lot of great stuff there. Also, don't forget about Slot Car Crazy on Facebook. There is if you go into there, there is in the albums, there is a list of these chassis there as well, with pictures of both top and bottom of the chassis. So if you need to go there to identify your car, you can also go there as well. And join while you're there. The only stipulation is you have to be a member of other groups to be able to get in there. Just so I know that everybody in this group is there for slot cars and nothing else. So have a great week. I'm out. I'll catch you guys with that next video identifying your Tyco chassis, and I'll be back in a little while. Bye.